Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful event with the Virtual Tasting Society. I'm Jane Kilkenny, standing in for Vadim. Tonight, we welcome Murphy Quint from Cedar Ridge. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're new, if you're not new, we're here to get nerdy, chat, learn, and ask questions. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're actually talking. Please remember that we're talking about Cedar Ridge and not every other distillery on the planet tonight. So keep it on point. And if you have questions and you're too shy to talk on camera, throw it in the chat and we'll make sure Murphy gets a chance to answer you. With that, Murphy, take it away.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for that intro. And I'm really excited to be here this evening with all you. There's going to be a ton of fun. I really enjoy when we have these quintessential flights that we're going to taste through. And that's what tonight is going through all the different Cedar Ridge quintessential offerings, or I guess not all of them, but a nice selection of them. And it's entirely focused on our single malts, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. So this should be a ton of fun. Before I get into those things, though, I'll just tell you a little bit about me, a little bit about our distillery. My name is Murphy Quint. I'm the master blender here at Cedar Ridge Distillery, located in Swisher, Iowa. We've been up and at 'em since 2005. So this year we celebrated our 20-year anniversary. And I know in the general world of whiskey, that's as young can be. But in the world of basically American whiskey outside of Kentucky, that's fairly old. So we're in kind of interesting times on the American whiskey landscape. And like I said, outside of Kentucky, Cedar Ridge has actually been around for quite a while compared to a lot of the others in the market. So we've been at it for a while. We are a winery distillery combination, and that is going to be a theme tonight. That's going to be something that you'll see firsthand, the advantages of being both a winery and distillery. I will mention that just to kind of get ahead of a question, our wine is a fairly small scale business. It is imperative to everything that we do. Kind of our whole business was developed around being a winery originally, and we kind of pivoted into becoming a distillery. But these days, our winery is fairly small scale, only distributed in the state of Iowa, whereas our distillery, we distribute to about 35 states. We're exporting to about 6 different countries. So obviously, very different scales, but the wine and the whiskey, they really play off each other really well. One of the last things I'll mention before we get moving here is that Cedar Ridge is primarily known as a bourbon distillery. We, are in Iowa. We grow corn in the state of Iowa. It makes sense for Cedar Ridge to focus on bourbon production, and that's primarily what we do. We're actually the number one selling bourbon in the state of Iowa. We're the only distillery outside of Kentucky to be number one in any state, which is a very cool accomplishment. And I'm hoping that more independently owned distilleries can do that in their home states as well. But the reason I mentioned that we're mainly bourbon distillery is that kind of gives us some security. The bourbon's paying the bills around here. It's keeping the lights on, and that allows us to be very strategic with how we pursue the category of American single malt. And that's what tonight is all about. Is all about our quintessential American single malts, and basically what we're doing to incorporate different wine cask finishes and things of that nature. The bourbon is what supports all this and makes it possible. So with that, I didn't really touch on myself a whole lot. I touched on Cedar Ridge. I've been with the company since the very beginning. My family started the company. So in 2005, I was in high school. And I was helping out on nights and weekends, just kind of, making a few bucks, helping the family out. But eventually, I really fell in love with this. And I took a little hiatus in 2010 and moved out to Colorado, where I worked at Stranahan's for a few years. Really wonderful experience. I still to this day think it's one of the coolest distilleries on the planet. And it really got me excited about pursuing this long term. In 2014, I came back to Cedar Ridge and eventually took the title of head distiller and eventually master blender. So I've been doing this for a little over 20 years now. I really enjoy it. Can't imagine doing anything else, and excited to taste through some single malts with you tonight. So before we get into this, do we have any questions Cedar Ridge related before I start getting us our first dram pour here?
How long have you been making the single malt?
Really good question. So we I want to say we released our first single malt in 2014, and it was very different than it is now. A very different game. Back then it was Cedar Ridge single malt. So we had Cedar Ridge bourbon, Cedar Ridge rye, and Cedar Ridge single malt. Eventually we decided to rebrand. I think it was in 2018. We rebranded from Cedar Ridge Single Malt to the QuintEssential Single Malt, which is obviously a play on my family's last name, QuintEssential. Excuse me. The reason we did that, the reason that we broke this off of Cedar Ridge and kind of rebranded it was because people would try our bourbon, they would try our rye, and then they would eventually try our single malt. And they would assume that the single malt's going to taste somewhat similar to bourbon and rye, new charred oak influence, a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder. And that was not the experience for them. We do primarily an ex-bourbon aged single malt. So it's going to be a lot lighter in color, a little bit more delicate on the palate, things of that nature. And so it was really throwing consumers off. So we decided to kind of give it its own package, its own brand name. And in 2018, we rebranded it from Cedar Ridge Single Malt to the QuintEssential. And that has kind of helped consumers understand what it is. It looks a little bit more like a traditional single malt, maybe even a Scotch, different fonts, different look, and that has helped a ton. So yeah, we've been doing it since about on the market, at least since about 2014. We've just massively scaled it since then, for sure. Good question. Anything else before we hop into one here?
Question for you.
Yeah.
Just as a general ethos for the brand, and thank you for being here. We're excited for this. I'm a huge fan. What is your style? Because with American Single Malt, there's a variety of ways to go. Some brands feel like we've mentioned, new charred oak is the way to make it American. Are you guys, and some brands that we know use ex-bourbon casks to mimic kind of what the Scotch do? What do you guys have a style you stick to? Because you obviously have a lot that you're playing with, and we have a range of flavors. But if you were to distill it down to like your core ethos, what would you say it is?
Yeah, really good question. Thanks for asking it. So, yeah, the world of American Single Malt is a very, very broad category, and it's intentionally broad. That's how we want it to be as a commission of American Single Malt producers. So everyone's kind of finding their own thing to hang their hat on. Some distilleries might focus on locally grown barley. Some distilleries might focus on smoked malts. Some distilleries might, do whatever it is in their state that they want to focus on. Here at Cedar Ridge, the thing that we're really hanging our hat on is cask finishing, aka secondary cask maturation. That's what I like to focus on, and that's obviously rooted from our winery and having fun wine casks around that we can mature our own single malts in. Prior to that, though, you asked, do we do new charred oak or ex-bourbon? About 99.9% of the single malt that we put away starts out in our own ex-bourbon casks. So we do create a single malt that is much more traditionally Scotch-like as opposed to American single malt. Now, keep in mind, American single malt has only been a category for a little over a year now. An official category. People in America have been producing single malt for over 20 years now, but it's only been recognized by the TTB for a little over a year. And so prior to this all happening, some distilleries were a little bit nervous about using ex-bourbon versus new oak. Traditional American whiskey has to be new charred oak. And so a lot of single malt producers started out putting single malt in charred oak. Some people like us, we kind of chanced it and we went ex-bourbon. Well, now the TTB recognizes the category, and we legally have the option of ex-bourbon or new charred oak, which I think is a beautiful option to have as a producer. And we happen to lean on the ex-bourbon style. The reason being there is because we I'll say my dad in particular has always been a big Scotch guy. I myself have become a big Scotch guy as well. And we wanted to go a little bit more along the lines of that and differentiate from our style of bourbon and rye and things of that nature. Yep. All right. So great question there. And we'll keep the questions rolling. Please, I like a nice casual, flight and conversation. But I also know that the longer I wait until I get a dram in front of people, the edgier things get. So I at least want to get the first one going. And please feel free to chime in with questions. If someone asks them in the chat, if someone just wants to mention it to me, that'd be great because I don't always see that. But we'll get going on the very first pour. And this is going to kind of bring together everything that I've said so far. And the first one is our QuintEssential Signature Solera Edition. So if you haven't poured that for yourself, please go ahead and do so. This is what gave birth to our entire American Single Malt program. The QuintEssential is obviously a brand name for a single malt, but more than a product, it is a program. And like I was saying, it's all about starting out in ex-bourbon and then eventually secondary cask finishing everything. Well, the one that we're having right now the way that we do that is once we go from ex-bourbon, we transfer over to here. I'll start at the beginning. We fill up our ex-bourbon casks with our twice distilled single malt. About 4 to 5 years into the process is when we will transfer it from the ex-bourbon cask to a secondary cask. And we use a wide variety, well over 40 different cask types that we use for this. Sherry, port, rum, brandy, French oak, American oak, Hungarian oak, you name it, we're using it. And then after about another year or two aging in those casks, I'll start tasting through it and I'll determine which barrels should be added into our Solera vat. Now, our Solera vat never goes empty. So we'll bottle it halfway down and we'll refill it back up. We'll bottle it halfway down and we'll refill it back up. So over time, we're going to get a nice progression or an evolution in flavor profile of this vat because we're only half emptying it and then we're adding new casks to it. So I always say that, batch 17 and 18 will be fairly similar, but batch 17 and batch 47 will probably be fairly different because over time it's going to evolve. So it's kind of a fun art project that we're always doing. But it has also done a couple other things for me and for the company. It has taught me a lot about blending cask finishes together. I've obviously been able to learn from this process, what happens when you blend single malt in a rum cask with single malt in a brandy cask with single malt in a sherry cask. And that has helped with some other products that we've created down the road. This also gave birth to everything that we're going to taste for the rest of the night. So the QuintEssential special releases that we'll have, which is a blend of about 4 to 5 different finishing casks. Also, our single cask series, which is, for example, single malt in a Amontillado sherry on its own, or single malt in a French oak cask on its own. So we've got all these casks that we play with, and they can go in this Solera edition that we're having right now, or they can be used for whatever else we want to use it for, and we'll see that in the rest of the tasting here tonight. So I will mention that the Solera edition is the only non-cask strength single malt that we will have tonight. So please pace yourself. This is a 92 proof offering. And yeah, what does everyone think of it so far?
It's really awesome. It kind of reminds me like a slight bit of Campbelltown. Like it has like a farmy vibe to it, and I was not expecting even this one to be like holy guacamole. It's awesome.
Well, hey, thank you for that. Yeah, it definitely it has a little bit of a funk to it. Again, it definitely goes along the single malt Scotch side of things, as opposed to the traditional American single malt style. And so yeah, I'm glad you're picking up on that. I'll also mention, I didn't touch on this. I always kind of wait until people get a couple sips in because I'm about to say a word that can divide a crowd pretty easily. There is just a touch of peat in this. It's not anything substantial. The way I would say that if I'm going to add 20 barrels to this vat, 1 barrel will be peated malt. So I mean, very minimal amount of peat. However, as you'll see tonight, I really like to blend with a small amount of peat. It kind of works to round things out. If you've got a whiskey that's kind of following a nice progression and it kind of quiets for a second and then takes back off, blending with a little bit of peat can kind of close that gap, and it enhances the experience. And so I do like in this product, as well as a couple of our special releases that we'll try later, I like to blend with a little bit of peat. Is anyone picking up on any peat in there?
I get a little bit of it.
Nice.
Perfect.
I mostly get some sourness.
Some grapefruit.
Yep. And I am not drinking this one with you guys, but a lot of times on our Solera edition, I'll get a little bit of green apple, which goes along with what you guys are saying right now. A little bit of green apple to it. Yep. A little bit of, like you said, sour side of things.
Sorry, question.
And then this sourness, I usually get when I drink something that's been in contact with an IPA.
Oh yeah,
IPA thing.
I get makes perfect sense. And I don't do a ton of beer cask maturation. We have a couple on site. These ones in particular, nothing in our Solera vat has gone that route, but I do see the parallels that you're referring to, and I can see how that would kind of come up. Yeah, the slightly sour, a little bit of green apple, a little bit of citrus maybe. All that can absolutely come from those casks.
The sourness for me reminds me of sourdough.
Yes.
More than green apples.
Definitely
it's ready yeasty sourness.
Yes, it definitely has a dough to it. This and we also make a little bit of wheat whiskey, very small amount. On both of those, I get a ton of doughy notes. So I'm glad you're getting that too. Jordan, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm sorry if you covered this. I apologize. I was doing a little work in the beginning.
Mhm.
As far as
No
the
problem.
being ex-bourbon casks, is it your bourbon casks? And if so, do you treat the casks in any way between dumping and filling?
Mhm.
Is it rechar, anything like that?
Great question. And I will say that yes, it is our own bourbon casks, but that's not like something that we're gonna stay on forever. If we continue to scale single malt, eventually we will not dump enough of our own bourbon casks to feed our single malt program. So right now, that is what we do mainly out of convenience and because it's just kind of a cool thing to do. But eventually, as single malt continues to grow, we'll probably have to bring in some ex bourbons from elsewhere. So I just want to be transparent on that. That right now the answer is yes. Eventually, though, I imagine that will probably change. As far as like reconditioning casks, no, we don't do anything at all. So our bourbon is aged in New American Oak Char number 3 from Independent Stave, and we use it once for bourbon. Obviously, once it's dumped, it's ready to be filled with single malt as is. So no rechar or anything along those natures, just a straight up refill.
And are you like McCarthy sourcing the peated distilled whiskey from Scotland, or are you doing something yourself?
Good question too. We bring in the peated malt itself from Scotland, so it's Baird's heavily peated malt. We mash it on site, distill it on site, and do the whole thing here. So it's the only grain that we work with in bags, which always makes our distilling team really happy when we go from augering out of a grain bin automatically into the mash tun to them having to lug around a bunch of 50-pound bags. But yes, we bring in the Baird's heavily peated malt and we process it all on site. Yep.
And then the unpeated stuff, where are you sourcing that from?
So that comes from Prairie Malt Facility in Saskatchewan. I'm a really, really good partner of ours, someone that we've been working with since the very beginning. I would, I would hesitate to ever imagine moving away from them just because they do such an incredible job for us, and they give us the base product that we're trying to create. The very delicate, again, doughy side of things is where we want to be on this, and Prairie Malt produces a really nice 2-row pale malted barley for us, and that's what we utilize for our base. So to touch on both questions at once here, our mashing, when we mash, it's not like we're doing 100% peated malt mashes. We actually do a few different percentages. So for instance, we do a 33% peated and then 66% 2-row pale as a mash, and then every now and then we'll do 50-50. This year, for the first time, we did do one fermenter at 100% peated malt, just as an experiment. I don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to turn out, but we do usually percentage mash so that it's not overly peated. It creates kind of a nice, delicate peated whiskey. So, yeah.
And so you don't take breaks in between running peated mash, since you're not doing exclusively peated. How do you differentiate between different runs so that something's not overly peated if you're trying to do an unpeated release?
Yeah. So I mean, we'll do separate mashes. I mean, so for example, when we do peated malt 2 weeks out of the year, and so for those 2 weeks, we'll do a few different percentages of different mashes, and then once we're done that, we switch back to 100% 2-row pale malted barley. So we have to chase all the peated single malt all the way through fermentation and all the way through our distillation, and then we're back to business as usual. So we do streamline everything out so that one fermenter feeds our alpha still 2 times, and the alpha still feeds the finishing still perfectly. So it is kind of all streamlined and logistically sound. But we just run the peated malt until it's out, and then we switch back to the standard 2-row pale.
And the heavily peated Baird's is what, 50 ppm ish?
I believe that's correct. Yep, 50
Okay.
50 p.m. Yep.
Gotcha. And since you're experimenting with finishing casks, I'm guessing you're not experimenting with the barley coming in.
Correct. Yes, and that's a good point. When it comes to whiskey's very complicated when it comes to experimentation, and that's because any good experiment, you need to follow the scientific method. You really only want to change one variable at a time. Well, the hard part about that is that you only know the effects of that variable change 7 years down the road, and then it's like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. We should do more of that. Well, now you got to wait 7 years again before that even comes of age, or whatever the age statement is that you're working with. So it is kind of complicated to do a lot of experiments at once. We typically experiment on the cask side of things. That is our staple. That's what we're dedicated to, is doing secondary cask maturation. When it comes to the grains, every now and then we'll change it up a little bit, but it's fairly small scale. For example, like the 100% peated mash that I mentioned, we did that one time this year. It was the first time we've ever done it. We'll see how it goes, and then maybe we'll revisit years down the road, if that makes sense.
And are you going to release that 100% peat?
If it's good, yeah,
Pretty
if it's good. I hope it's outstanding, and I hope to release it. Absolutely. I mean, it'll be 2035 probably before we do that. I want to make sure that it gets adequate time and is properly cared for. But yeah, I'm sure we will release it. And the cool thing is, and what we're about to get into, is that if it's what I deem to be close to perfect, it'll come out to the market on its own. And if it's not, if it's flawed or off balance, I love working with flawed and off balance barrels as well, because they can be great in blends. And so that's why there's not a lot of risk to us doing that, to us taking this chance. It is kind of an expensive thing to do a 100% peated malt. However, like I said, if it works, it goes out to market on its own. If it doesn't, we'll create a fun blend with it. So it's expensive, but fairly low risk in the long run. And that's why we did it. So, okay. So we're all on the QuintEssential Solera edition. Do we want to pop to the next one here? We got a nice size flight. So I'm going to take us to the next one. If we ever, buzz past a question or anything like that, please don't hesitate to pull me back. But we are about to get in to a few different single casks. So the one that we just had is a marriage, a blend, however you want to phrase it, of many different single malts, all produced Cedar Ridge single malts, finished in different secondary casks. This next one is on its own. It is a Tokaji finished single malt. So please go ahead and prep the Tokaji if you haven't already. And I will also touch on pronunciation. I know there are many people that produce Tokaji many different ways, from Tokaji to Tokaji. Say it however you want to say it. I'm kind of set on going with Tokaji, just because a person in the industry that I respect and who has experience with it suggested to go that route. But Tokaji is a Hungarian sweet wine, and I will mention that I am not a wine expert. I love working with wine casks. We have a very good wine producer here. Our winemaker is a guy named Kent Falker. He's extremely talented on this side, but I do not know everything there is to know about wine. I'm more of a whiskey specialist. But this product in particular is a Hungarian sweet style wine. And during the grape growing process, the grapes are impacted by noble rot. And so what that noble rot's going to do is it's going to cause the grapes to essentially shrivel up, and the sugars will concentrate. And from that, the winemaker is able to create a very sweet Hungarian wine. And so after that wine was bottled, I was able to purchase a few of these casks, these Tokaji casks, and I absolutely love how they finished our single malts. I will say that I work with a lot of sweet wine casks. This one produces very different flavor profiles from the others. Such, for example, Sauternes, white port, things of that nature. It's going to be very different from those. And because of that, it's kind of become a staple in our finishing cask portfolio, is to have these Tokajis around. So what does everyone think of this Tokaji finished single malt? Again, started out in ex-bourbon and was transferred to the Tokaji cask.
I know you said it's different, but it does remind me of Sauternes finish.
Of what finish? Sorry?
Sauternes.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So there's certainly going to be parallels there. Just within our own portfolio, it's funny the route that one flavor profile can go versus the other. When you're expecting them to be virtually identical, you'll obviously have the parallels, but just the differences in them are also quite impressive to see. So I like using these in blends sometimes because they can present. It's not entirely similar to a French oak, but there's a certain note into it, kind of almost like a spice that takes it in a direction similar to French oak that works really well when I'm creating our quintessential special releases. And so Tokai will make an appearance later in this tasting and one of the special releases that we'll go through as well.
It's
Yep.
Go ahead, Jane.
it's interesting that there's the lemon on the front of the palate, and like Vadim said, it's a little spicy mid palate. It kind of wallops you up the head, and then that proof kind of comes in and gives you a nice little hug afterwards to make you feel spice. I mean, I absolutely love this one. The first time I tried it, I just was like, okay, I'm sold. This is great. There's interesting. Jacob mentioned Nutella and coffee beans on the nose. And I'm like, I don't get the Nutella so much, but I do get a little bit of the coffee, which is interesting.
That is interesting. How about everyone else? You guys getting anything similar there?
I was going to say, I don't have a memory of having this on a single malt, but I've had Tokai finish rye and bourbons. I don't like the bourbons as much. I tend to think it's a little too much sweet on sweet, kind of like a rum. I have the same feeling. But I really like it with a rye. I think the contrast is nice of sort of spice with it, and I'm getting the same thing here. I don't know if it's the Tokai with the spice or whatever it is affecting the other. It's creating a nice sort of contrast of sweet and spice that carries. And I definitely the citrus note, the lemon note helps open, and then sort of that nice spice going through at the end. It's a really lovely way to finish.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that everyone's kind of getting that spice that I'm referring to. It's funny, the Tokai casks, as well as, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but as well as one of the other single casks that we're going to taste later, they kind of have curveballs in the middle, and the Tokai curveball is that spice side that I didn't originally expect to happen. But because I enjoyed that so much, like I said, they've kind of become a staple. So I've worked with our barrel broker to make sure that we keep getting Tokai casks from the exact same location, just because I don't want to risk switching to a different producer and having that spice element go away. I think it's just phenomenal. And it adds, like I said, kind of a nice curveball, but also stays fairly balanced. And so, like I said, I'm glad to see everyone's picking up on that kind of interesting spice curveball in the middle. Yeah.
I'm getting a little bit of, a hint of fresh cut grass.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. A little bit of fresh cut grass. I miss fresh cut grass. We've got a lot of snow on the ground right now. All right. Well, cool. And so, reminder, everything that we're going through is cask strength. So make sure to be aware of that as we continue to taste through this. But how about we create a little bit of a contrast, and we'll get the next one going here. And you can kind of see how wildly different these are. But before we do that, though, I want to mention everything that we're having tonight is almost the exact same thing. It is just finished differently. And that is why I love secondary cask maturation so much, is because we can take whatever it is that we're working with, and we can take it in multiple different directions. It starts out as the same base product, but it finishes differently. And I think that's a really fun and beautiful thing to explore, both as a producer and as a consumer. And we'll see that right away here with this next one. So the glass number 3 tonight is going to be our Chardonnay finished, Chardonnay Puncheon finish. So obviously a dry white wine. This particular cask we got from Burgundy, France. So obviously Chardonnay can be grown in many different areas. This one particularly came from Burgundy, France. It is aged in a 132-gallon cask, which is generally the same size as you'd see in like a sherry butt. It's just kind of an odd looking barrel. A puncheon is usually going to be kind of shorter, squatter, whereas a butt, it might be a little bit longer and thinner, if that makes sense. But they both hold around 132 gallons, of course, converted over from liters. So we just went from the Tokai, which is going to be a sweet wine finishing casks, to a Chardonnay, which is going to be a dry white wine finishing cask. And you'll be able to see just firsthand how different those two are together, even though they're both produced from 100% two-row pale malted barley that started out for about 5 years aging in ex-bourbon and then was transferred into these secondary casks. So what are we thinking of the Chardonnay so far?
I think the Chardonnay really comes through on this. It's not one of my favorite wines, but I do
Mhm.
distinctive, and it's got its own form of heat with the proof. But
Mhm.
the dryness is nice. It's not astringent, but it kind of makes you want to take another sip.
Yeah. All right. Well said. Well said. Anyone
Murphy,
else?
are you guys, do you talk about the age on these? I know that's kind of a loaded question and it depends on the region, but what just for
Yeah,
statistics.
yeah. So, they most of them don't have age statements. I'm trying to look at a couple of them here. Every now and then we'll throw one on. Generally they're all going to be about 6 years old. Every now and then, 7. But yeah, all 6, 7 years old is kind of the wheelhouse that we're working in right now.
And then how long are the finishes of those 6 or 7?
Good question. So, the finishes are kind of all over the place. Uh, every now and then you'll get a cask that can get a really nice finishing flavor profile in 9 months. Every now and then you'll get one that needs 3 years. So once they get into that secondary cask, the name of the game is really to start checking up on them a lot. So while the transfer period going from ex bourbon to the secondary cask is almost always right at the 5 year mark, the secondary cask is going to vary a lot, which kind of makes age stating them a little bit complicated. Even within the same category, like for instance, Ruby Port. Ruby Port's finishing casks are one that we use probably more than anything else. But I've had some that are outstanding in 9 months of finishing time, and I've had some that they've been in the cask for 3 years and they're still not ready. So it's kind of all over the board. I just make sure that nothing hits market until I've deemed that it's balanced, it's ready, and it's good to hit market. Yeah.
That's the thing with ruby ports. When I was in Portugal and I went to a couple of port producers, they explained that ruby ports are aged in these giant vats, but people are sourcing port
Mm-hmm.
casks. So how does that happen? Are just some producers making it aging in a smaller casks? Is that what it is?
It's tough to say. So there's a lot of really weird things happening on the the barrel broker market right now. So essentially, what happened is there was a massive explosion in the amount of distilleries, not only in the United States but basically globally. But just in the United States, for example, in 2005 when we opened up, there were like 40 distilleries outside of Kentucky, and just last year we hit 3,000. So there was obviously a massive boom in the number of American producers, in addition to the rest of them across the globe. Well, what happened was everyone wanted to start buying up all these fun finishing casks. So Ruby Port, Sherry, things of that nature became extremely popular to buy and utilize in your distillery. Well, the problem with that is more distilleries were trying to acquire casks than casks of those things were actually being emptied. And that created some problems. Import, to your point, is one of them, but specifically in sherry, it became a huge thing. Is that sherry producers weren't emptying sherry casks fast enough because consumers weren't drinking sherry fast enough in order to feed the distilling market. So a number of things started happening from that. One of those things being conditioning casks, which is the practice of essentially, you fill this barrel for about 3 months, and then you pump it from this barrel to the next one, and then you sell the original barrel, and then you just keep repeating that process, and you're creating conditioned casks. I would imagine, I think to the question you were asking, I think that is one of the things that has happened in both port and sherry. But on the market, you can, if you're willing to pay a little bit extra, you can acquire what would be an authentic cask. You might have to go the extra mile to really look into it and make sure that it is indeed authentic. But we have dabbled in the world of both. We have done both seasoned casks and authentic casks, specifically in sherry. We have some sherry butts that are upwards of 60 years old. When I'm saying 60 years old, I'm referring to the wood itself, not the whiskey inside of it. But then we have some conditioned sherry casks, and I don't know the same on the port side of things, but just based on how some of them are ready super fast and some need a lot of time, I'm assuming the exact same thing is going on in the world of port. Yep, if that makes sense. All right, how's everyone else feeling about the Chardonnay here? Good stuff. All right, well,
we getting dust.
A little bit of dust. All right,
Yeah.
there you go. A little bit of dust.
I'm getting I'm getting a little bit of like hayish thing with some green grass mixed in. It's kind of
Okay.
like a dried grass and a little bit of dampened a greenish grass.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great tasting notes there.
I haven't had like a Chardonnay influenced dram before, and so like I find it very interesting just how, I mean, I probably had Chardonnay like twice or three times, so I'm not like a huge like informative type of that. I understand the taste, but whenever
Yeah.
I drink it, it literally tastes like I'm drinking wine. So it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, really does come through. And I do think when we do flights like this, the Chardonnay finished, it can kind of get lost in the mix because as we go through this, I think you'll find some that are maybe a little bit more memorable and a little bit more exciting. But I do appreciate the Chardonnay, exactly to your point, because it is really representative of what a Chardonnay is. I mean, I do get kind of a buttery side of things, that dry white wine, that Chardonnay, it really does present itself in this whiskey, and that's what I'm going for ultimately is something that's truly influenced by the cask. So I'm glad that you're getting that. All right, with that, and don't hesitate again to interrupt, but in the interest of time, we'll keep things moving along, and we're going to get into kind of the first kind of curveball, a little bit more interesting one here. And we were talking about this a little bit before we got rolling. A couple of us were kind of together before the whole group showed up, and we were talking about the peated malt finished in Sauternes. So it's a Sauternes hogshead. Someone asked this question earlier, and I'll go ahead and dive into it now. It is very similar to the one that Single Cask Nation bought earlier this year. That was a very hot release, and it is kind of its sister barrel. I'll dive into that story a little bit more here in a second, but I'll mention it is from a 66-gallon converted from liters hogshead. Obviously, it is a Sauternes finished. I will say, outside of a Amontillado sherry, which is kind of my bread and butter, is Amontillado sherry casks. Sauternes is probably my favorite type of cask to use for secondary cask maturation. It's kind of at least one of the heartbeats of our QuintEssential program. It just plays really well with our spirit, regardless of whether it is peated or not. So we produce a lot of Sauternes finish, both peated, and a lot of Sauternes finish unpeated. This one in particular is peated on the lighter side of peat, but it still very much is peat. And getting back to the Single Cask Nation thing, originally these casks, I put away 3 of these, and they were set to be kind of a smaller version of our QuintEssential special release, which we haven't got into yet tonight, and we will. And those are really fun special releases that we release once a year. And I decided to kind of go a different route at the last minute, but that left us with these 3 really fun casks. Again, one went to Single Cask Nation. One is the one that we're drinking right now, and I'm still sitting on one on our blending floor, just kind of saving it for a rainy day. So they're really fun ones to have around. What does everyone think of the peated malt finish in the Sauternes hogshead?
It almost has like if jam was smoky.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I have this one. I'm gonna drink this one with you guys.
This is my favorite so far.
All right, I'm glad to hear it. And are you typically a peat person?
I am. I do it all. I like sherry finished scotch. I like peat.
I mean, so here's the thing, Rita is an adult and she likes peat. See, I'm looking at you, Robert.
Stereotypes are not okay in here. I will not endorse stereotypes.
No, I agree with Rita. This is my favorite thus far. It's really good.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. And I see Vadim kind of called something out on this. This is a theme that I'm confident you will see this the whole way through the tasting. One thing we hear a lot is that our cask strength whiskey does not drink hot for being cask strength. That's something that we hear not only in our single malts, we oftentimes hear it in our bourbon and rye. I mean, obviously I've already told you all that these are all cask strength, but I'm willing to bet that if I hadn't and I pulled the group, you might guess this is 107, maybe 110 proof. And, it's obviously going to be many proof points higher than that. I don't have the proof on everything in front of me right now, But the general range that we're going to be tasting through tonight is about 117 to about 123 proof. That's where we're hanging this evening. And yeah, like I said, in these tastings, I oftentimes hear that for being cask strength, they're not very hot. And
so I will say I feel the other ones I tasted the heat. Now I'm not generally a bourbon drinker, so I'm not used to drinking super high proof stuff. But this one I don't taste the high proof.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, and we want it to be full flavor and on the bolder side and things of that nature, but we also want it to be somewhat delicate and at least enjoyable, not overwhelming is the word that I'm looking for. And so hopefully they're all kind of hitting the mark on that front. But let me hear from some people who don't normally like peat. This is something that I always like to do. For those of you who don't normally like peat, where do you stand on this one?
I assume you're asking me because everybody else seems to love it.
Specifically, Robert, what do you think?
I'm not gonna. I was very honest. I didn't. I didn't chime in. People love it. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it.
Understood.
I think it should have been at the end. I've been tasting everything before to get the taste out of my mouth. I'm not. I'm just being honest. That's it. And like I said before, I'm a bourbon rye drinker. This is my I'm venturing out to Scotch, but oh my God, that is. That is different. I'll just here. Is that polite enough? Yeah. That is different.
No. I mean, so here's the thing. That. I always say it would be boring if we all drank the same thing, right?
It would.
Yeah.
I am not a huge peat fan, and everybody pretty much knows that. In the famous words of Jane, I don't hate this.
I love it.
Peat, you kind of have to be in a certain mood for. There are certain peated scotches that I just can't do because it tastes like sucking an ashtray. This one's not the ash forward. It has so I'm getting all of the flavors of the whiskey itself. The peat doesn't hit you like a flavor profile that you don't like. It definitely takes it in a direction. That's not usually my jam, but I have had ones that I like, and this one's like this is one. Would I run out to buy a bottle immediately? No, but if I had people that were sharing drams with it, this is one of the better ones that I've had. So that's high praise for me.
Good to know.
I really appreciate that, and also Robert, getting back to what you were saying. No, I really do appreciate the honesty. I would not, I would never expect. To do a full flight of whiskey with a group, a big group of people, and expect everyone to perfectly like everything. That's the fun thing about whiskey is that, oftentimes it can be not controversial in a negative way, but in a good way where it creates conversation and you can actually talk about, what you do like, what you don't, and why. And that's kind of the fun side of whiskey. So you want something that creates a little bit of dialogue, and a lot of times peat can do that. And, one thing I'll mention, it is not overwhelmingly peated. Every now and then you'll be like sitting around a campfire and the smoke will move in a certain direction. It'll hit you in the eyes and just really, really hurts. I think a lot of people probably know what I'm getting with that. Every now and then you'll have a peated single malt that is like that, only in flavor profile, where it's just like, it is overwhelming peat. This is not that. This is a fairly delicate peat, but still peat can be very, kind of like, I think it's cilantro, where some people are really, really susceptible to tasting cilantro and others really aren't. Like, you could give my wife and I the same amount of cilantro and I'll want more and she will want less. That's just how it goes. And peat is kind of similar in that respect.
Well, that same fire you're talking about, I think I pulled the log out of that fire and licked it with this one.
Well, I get the smokiness. I get the smokiness as well. I
think it was kind of lit too. It still had a little fire going on it too. So. But hey, here's an old saying. When I was a teenager, the first beer I drank didn't taste very good either. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
You gotta try it.
So we have a question.
Definitely an acquired taste.
Where do you know where you get your peat from?
It's Baird's heavily peated malt from Scotland. Yep.
But which part of Scotland do you know the source of the peat? It's
let me see if I cannot remember where Baird's comes from. Baird's. I cannot recall off the top of my head where it comes
Where
from. Let me pull it up.
West
Um,
Highland.
So Baird's Heavily Peated Malt comes from maltings in the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah.
So
No, that makes sense.
yeah, it does. And
Well,
every now and then when we're working with this specific peat, it'll throw in a little bit of a brininess to it, which is really exciting. I'm not getting a ton on this one. A lot of times in sherry finished peated malts that we do, it'll kind of go briny, a little bit salty, and I really enjoy that. Like I said, I'm not getting a ton of that in this one, but maybe in one of the ones down the road we will. We'll see. But I want to address one other thing I think Robert said, and that's wish we would have saved this one for the end. The tasting order for this was a little bit difficult to put together because here we are kind of in the exact middle of a tasting, and we're starting with peat, and we're going to kind of move back away from it. The next couple, I'm confident they will not get overshadowed by the peat that we just consumed. So hopefully, regardless of whether you like this one or even don't like this one, I think we'll be able to stay on track as far as a good flight goes. And so hopefully we can see that here. Before I move us on, did anyone have anything else on the peated Sauternes?
Well, I have a question about, so all of these so far, except for the first one, are high proof, but they drink very, very easily. I'm curious, is it because of the cask, like how the casks are playing with each other?
Yeah, good question. And I wouldn't necessarily, it's tough to say for sure. I wouldn't necessarily attribute that to the casking. I would attribute it to a few other things. One, during distillation, we well, here, let me start all the way at mashing even. We do, for single malt, this isn't that uncommon, but we do an off-grain fermentation and distillation, which is typically the norm in single malt, not so much in bourbon and rye. We do off-grain for everything. So we use a mash filtration system coming off the mash, which is going to separate the wort from the grain, and it's going to have slightly less grain contact than you would see in, say, like a bourbon or a rye that ferments and distills on grain. That's going to be one minimal part of it. Probably a bigger part of it is when we distill. We exclusively use pot stills here, but we do distill up to about 143, 145 proof. And so during that process, we might be stripping a little bit more out than other distilleries might, depending on what proofs they're going to. And that can kind of soften it out a little bit. And then the last thing would be the way that we age our product. We do non-climate controlled maturation in the state of Iowa, which is a little bit crazy. For example, right now, today, when I came to work this morning, it was -8 degrees here. And the barrels were sitting in buildings that were -8 degrees. And so we're going from a temperature range of about 115 negative, about 15 degrees negative, all the way up to 100 degrees in the positive. So that's about 115 degree temperature swing that we see on an annual basis. And that's gonna cause a lot to happen in the barrel too. We're gonna get a lot of angel share due to that, a little bit more than the industry average. And so, I'd like to think that some of the more volatile sides of the whiskey might evaporate out as well. So there's a number of different areas that kind of contribute to it in the aggregate, but there's no one thing in particular that I'd point to, and I'd say it's specifically practice X that is making our whiskey drink like it's 112 when it's actually 120. I think it's really just the process as a whole, as opposed to one or even two things, if that makes sense.
Can I ask a quick question on your? I talked about your angel. How long before your barrels actually seal up, where you're not losing anymore?
Yeah. So you mean how long before?
Well, because if I remember correctly, you do lose, but it's in like the first portion. It's not like you age it for 20 years and you keep losing, correct?
Yeah. So the way that it works for us is when we fill a barrel, not so much with single malt because we're doing once used barrels with single malt, but let me talk about bourbon for a second. When we fill a barrel of bourbon, a new oak char 3 with bourbon, the first year we're going to lose about 14% of that cask volume, and that's entirely because we're saturating the wood. A lot of that's going to go in the wood, and when we harvest the whiskey out, there will still be whiskey in that wood that we never reclaimed. So that's about 14%. Every year thereafter, we're going to lose about, on average, about 3% more every single year. And so with single malt, it's a little bit different because we're starting with wood that is already somewhat saturated, so we're not going to lose that initial 14%. But in practice so far, I mean, we have seen that the longer we age, the more that's going to continue. Not necessarily at a 3% pace rate per year, but I mean, if we have a couple single malts around that have been aging 10 years, and they're definitely a lower fill volume than the single malts that have aged 5, if that makes sense. So I haven't found a spot yet where we stop seeing any vapor loss at all, any angel share at all. But we've only just hit the 10-year mark, so it's tough to say. Mm-hmm.
Do you use your bourbon barrels more than once, like the Scotch do?
We typically do not. We typically get one turn out of the bourbon barrel. So we use it for bourbon, and then we use it for single malt, and then typically we send it to a barrel broker, and it goes somewhere else in the world. But typically we just get one turn out of our ex-bourbon for single malt. We could indeed use it more than once. Every time you use a cask, it's going to become more and more neutral. And I can tell you that from finishing casks, for instance, the Amontillado sherry butts that we use, I try to get 5 uses out of them. Now, I don't have many of them that I've used 5 times so far, but I can tell you that, like a first fill Amontillado cask, significant flavor, significant color that it's going to impart. Second fill, fairly significant. By the time you get to third fill, it's getting pretty light. And by the time you get to fourth and fifth fill, it's almost a neutral cask. And so, I mean, there's pros and cons to using a neutral cask, obviously. When it comes to the bourbon side of things, though, we kind of want that to be fairly consistent, and we want most of the variable side of things to be on the secondary cask. That's usually what we're going for. All right. With that, just to kind of keep things buzzing, this is good conversation, so let's keep it going. But let's also get on to the next one here. This is a killer cask that was picked by a very good friend of mine. So again, not a blend. This is a single cask release, and it is our single malt. Started out in ex-bourbon and was finished in Moscatel. And so this is a killer cask. Like I said, picked by a friend named Nate Gana. Is anyone here familiar with Nate Gana? He's kind of an Instagram personality. He started out as single malt daily and kind of evolved into something else, but a big Scotch guy, big single malt guy. And one day he was here at the distillery and we were tasting through some things together. And, I have a tendency of, once we've tasted through a few barrels, I'll start showing people the barrels that I don't want them to know about for things that I'm working on, projects with and things of that nature. Well, we did that, and he tasted this one, and eventually he claimed it for him, which at first I wasn't overly excited about because, I kind of had this barrel penciled for something else, but it ended up working out for the best. And he did buy this cask and release it entirely as a single barrel picked by him. So the rest of these single cask series were all picked by me. This one in particular was picked by Nate Gana, and it is that Moscatel finish. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have a couple single casks. The other one was the Tokaji that kind of throw a curveball. And I'll let you guys all taste it here before I kind of get into the curveball that I'm getting out of this one. But I did not expect a Moscatel cask to present this certain something that's, again, kind of in the middle. And I'll see if anyone here finds it. But I have since acquired about 20 more of these to use as secondary casks, just because I think they're phenomenal, both to release on their own as single casks and as blends.
So Moscatel is the same thing as Moscato, the sweet boy?
Correct. Sorry. I kind of skipped that. So it's going to be a sweet wine from the Muscat family. So yeah, Moscato, very similar to that. And it's a very, very vague category of sweet wine. It's kind of hard to nail down exactly what it is, just because it varies so much from type to type. But yeah, this is Moscatel. I believe this one in particular came from Spain, but I'm not positive. It might have come from France. I'll have to look that up. But now that you've all tried it, I'm going to kind of go ahead and dive into the note that I'm getting at. And it is the reason why I was confident pouring it after the peated Sauternes. In the middle, I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I get a certain smoke to it. It's almost like a char. It's not like campfire smoke, not like peated smoke, but there's almost like a little bit of a char. And that's what caused me to fall in love with this one while Nate was here. and I wanted to see if anyone else is getting that, like a little bit of a, and it's almost like a new oak char.
It it it's definitely got the char. It's definitely across the nose. It's smooth and soft, but it is char.
Yeah, I just I just get a ton of that, and I don't know why, because for what is a sweet aromatic wine, like similar to a Moscato, I wouldn't expect a lot of like char to it, and it's not like the interior of the barrel is charred. That's actually coming from the wine. I don't entirely know why, but like I said earlier, I did reach out to the barrel broker that I bought these casks through, and I secured a lot more of them just because I'm kind of obsessed with that note and what it can do on its own as a single cask, but also as a blender in a batch. What does everyone think of it here?
It kind of reminded me. So I love obviously bourbons and ryes that are cast in different barrels. I every time I find one, I buy it just to taste it. And I mean, so far this is the one I like the most. But when you say that what you taste in the middle, I guess because I'm so used to drinking rye, was like one of my favorite. This is the closest thing I've seen here, which I know scotches aren't, but I mean, not so much like a Whistle Pig 12 that's cast in 3 different barrels. It's the closest thing I think that's cast in a rye that's in a different barrel, or even, I mean, not even like an Angel Envy, like a rum cast or something like that. But I can taste the sweetness in it, and it's not as smoky as the rest so far, in my opinion, just mine.
Yeah, no, great, great. I think that's good analysis, and I will mention, just because you kind of reminded me of it with the the Whistle Pig 12 thing. We did release an anniversary bourbon for our 20-year anniversary earlier this year, and it is one of our hottest releases that we've ever done. I wasn't expecting it to go like it did. I mean, it sold out in like 5 minutes. But it had 3 different casks that we used for it. I believe it was Tawny Port, Tokai, and Moscatel. So we have done a little bit of bourbon in Moscatel casks as well, mainly again because of that char note that it puts in there. I wanted to make sure to try some bourbon in it, and then just earlier this week I filled up some rye in these same Moscatel casks. So no, good call there, and we are using it for not only single malt but bourbon, rye as well. Yeah. Anyone else have any notes on the Moscatel single malt?
To me, in the middle, it's got like stewed fruits. I don't know. I mean, you call it char. To me, it's more like cooked fruits for a very long time with a lot of depth. Less so than the char itself.
And that would, you're kind of, that makes a lot of sense. It would make sense for it to be more along those lines. And it's interesting how 2 notes that I would consider to be very different, they can kind of, in a way, be very close. Char to kind of the cooked fruit side of things. Yeah, now that you say it, I'm starting to kind of realize that might be a little bit more what that note is.
Yeah, it's like when you cook them for a long time, because of the natural sugars, they kind of caramelize a little bit. So that walks that line, maybe that I'm perceiving as stewing and you're perceiving as a char.
Yeah, I like that. Well done there. All right. So I'll ask this then. I mean, so far we just tried a few different single cask releases. We did Tokai, Chardonnay, the Peated and Sauternes, and the Moscatel. Anyone here have any favorites, or anyone here that thinks the Moscatel's the best? Robert said it, I suppose. Anyone else?
Yeah, I like the Moscatel the best. It reminds me, for some reason, of my great grandpa's pipe tobacco.
There you go.
That's a note. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Moscatel is my favorite of them, short of the first one, of course.
I guess I'm not that far off for a beginner, huh? That's my favorite. So there we go. I'll take it.
Hey, you know what? You like what you like. I mean, there's no wrong answer.
There isn't. And that's, like I said earlier, that is the beautiful thing about whiskey, is that, a whiskey can still be a very good whiskey and one person cannot like it. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, a color can be a good color, and one person might think it's a beautiful color, and the other person might not be as attracted to it. It's all very, every person kind of has their own taste, and that's what makes this so fun. So that's what makes
the
this so
nose
fun.
of this one is very perfumey compared to the other that we taste so far.
Yes, and so that makes a lot of sense because Moscatel, it's going to be kind of on the aromatic side of wine, and so yes, it's carrying through, and it does get a little bit perfumey. I just spilled mine all over my desk, and it's very perfumey in here. So, no, I'm getting that as well. All right. Well, so I mean, we can buzz into the. We've got two QuintEssential special releases, which are our most popular things that we do. They're kind of like our allocated single malt, if you will. But before that, anyone have any questions or any thoughts on any of the single casks that we've covered so far?
No, but Murphy, the way you're nosing stuff, and you say you don't go play in the wine with the wine people, but
yeah.
I mean, do you ever go over and kind of compare notes with your winemaker? Because I mean, wine's all about blending. You're doing a bunch of blending and finishing.
Yes, I do. I do a lot. One, because of everything you just said, and two, because our winemaker is one of the most talented people I've ever met. So yes, I work very closely with him. And yeah, I would say, even though I'm not a wine person, I'm not a wine expert at all. I do come out of the wine world. Cedar Ridge started as a winery. And so, I mean, when I was, 16, 17 years old and I was working in this business, I mean, it was much more wine focused. So the foundation that I built really was built off of wine. And it wasn't until, my early 20s when I was working at Stranahan's where I really transitioned into whiskey and got just deeply interested in the category as a whole. But yes, I have I suppose kind of a wine foundation that I've built off of, and because of that, there's some good crossover. But yeah, I work with our winemaker a lot. I pick his brain probably more than anyone else, just because he's got such a distinguished palate. And yeah, there's we have a very tight knit team here. A lot of people that have been here. I've got 3 people on my team now that have been here for 10 years, and several more that have been here for 5. And we all kind of bring different angles to the table, and we all work really well together. But again, our winemaker is kind of one of the most trusted advisors in the company for sure. And that is a pretty good transition here. That I hate to pass up a good transition into our first QuintEssential special release. So I go ahead and pour this one if you haven't already. This one is indeed called Wine Club First Meeting. So this one kind of pays homage to the wine roots that we have. And as you can probably guess, I mean, it is called Wine Club because it is made from a number of different casks, all that I would consider to be fairly uncommon or maybe even like exotic wine casks. Some that we have actually had already today. I mentioned earlier when we tried the Tokaji, it would make another appearance later in the form of a blend. And the same with the Moscatel. There's going to be a little bit of both of those in here. So what this is it is a blend of single malt that started out in ex-bourbon and was finished in Amontillado sherry, which is my absolute favorite cask to work with, Tokaji and Moscatel, blended with just a little bit of peated malt finished in Pinot Noir. So all wine casks, Amontillado sherry, Tokaji, Moscatel, and Pinot Noir. And I really fell in love with how a little bit of that peat from the Pinot Noir kind of took these other 3 casks in a cool direction and how it all worked together. But this one was our 2024 QuintEssential special release, and it did really well. It got some really good buzz from Whiskey Advocate and on Instagram and things of that nature. And I'm excited to see what the group thinks of this one. The Wine Club First Meeting. It also is a really good opportunity. I kind of skipped this to see the difference between single cask maturation versus blends. There's and I know that you're all whiskey people, so you understand this, but there are pros and cons to both. I mean, when it comes to a single cask, it's fun to have something that's one of a kind. It's never made again, and it's also influenced more by one thing as opposed to a bunch. Well, a blend is also fun because there's someone actually constructing it, very specifically with the vision on what they're trying to create. And, you're going to have something that might be a little less one-dimensional and a little bit more complexity due to the blend. But there's a trade-off there. And I'm excited to transition from the world of single casks over to blends here. So what does everyone think of this one?
Insane. I love Pinots, and it tastes like a Pinot, but it's also like a whiskey. So my mind is blown.
Well, hey, thank you. Thank you. The Pinot Noir cask that was used in this one that had the peated malt. I'm saying, it was just kind of a touch that I added to it, but really, really interesting flavor profile on that. I eventually might release the rest of it on its own as kind of a, just one thing, not a blend. Extreme tobacco, like mind-blowing amount of tobacco. I think maybe a small touch of that kind of made it to the final blend, but having that on its own was just one of the more bizarre casks that I've ever had from our property was this peated malt finish in the Pinot Noir. So I knew that it needed to make a bit of an appearance, at least in this particular blend, and kind of round out the others.
I mean, for me, this is one of those. It's super complex, and it develops, and you take a sip, and it just keeps changing. I mean, this is one of those. This is the kind of dram you drink around the fire pit and solve the world's problems with.
That's a phenomenal quote. I'm gonna have to try to remember that one. That's well said, and a huge compliment. So thank you. Yep.
So for me, besides the peat, it was the smokiest one. And when you told me it had peat in it, it made sense. And before you said the tobacco, I said, man, this thing reminds me of my Partagas #2 cigar. I felt like I was smoking a cigar on this one right here. A nice Cuban. You know what I mean? I'm not lying. That's what I thought,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And
Golan was saying the same thing with the tobacco leaf.
Good. And that tobacco note, that's coming from that slight amount of peated malt finish in that Pinot Noir. So I'm glad you guys are picking that up. I also want to mention when it comes to blending, I kind of have a philosophy, something that I'm trying to do. When I create my blends, I like to follow a very certain outline. There's kind of a code that humans really love. And it's not only in whiskey, it's every song, every story, every movie. They all follow the same outline. And I'm trying to create a whiskey that does it as well. And that's, a good story. It develops its plot. You've got kind of a rising action to a climax, and then a falling action into a conclusion. And humans are just very attracted to that exact arc, that outline. And with a blend, you can create the exact same thing. You can kind of get your initial, the entry, and then it starts to really open up, present itself, and then a climax, and then then you get to the finish for a nice delicate conclusion. And I will say that Pinot Noir, that's really what kind of pulled that together. The peated malt, I mentioned this earlier, it kind of works to keep that story arc going. Every now and then you get a whiskey that develops its plot, it starts to kind of take off, and then it just stalls out, and then it takes back off again. Working with a little bit of peated malt kind of closes that gap and keeps the trajectory going. And then I just love the way that this one concludes. The way that it finishes is kind of my favorite feature of this one in particular. But
Murphy.
Yeah.
Have I got the bottle?
What do we have there? I can see.
It's hard to see.
Yeah. What does it say?
It is single cask 121.5 red wine.
All right, and that one would probably be from one of our estate red wines. I don't know which one in particular, but that would not be the peated malt finish in Pinot Noir because I haven't released that one yet.
I'm dying to get it because this thing is awesome. You can see where the level is. Right? It's down there.
Yep. That's awesome. Thank you for your support on that. And I'm glad
you bet.
So Murphy, this one, the wine club, is that a quintessential or
it is It's a quintessential special release. So
Oh,
here
okay.
I'll hold something up. You can kind of see. So these are what our come on. These are what our normal ones look like. Let me see if I can get rid of my my background here. So our normal single casks kind of look like this. The
Okay.
quintessential special releases have a black label to them. So there are black label releases. Like I said, we release them once per year, and they're kind of our hot item. They're fun blends. And
Well, yeah, because
yeah,
I have the batch 2
yeah,
of the quintessential.
And so that's our Solera edition. Yep, that's the
Okay. And then I have 5 somewhere.
Number 5?
Yeah.
Or as like batch number 5 that looks like that, or does it have a black label to it?
It has black label.
All right. That well, we're gonna try that one next. So we'll see if it we'll see if it is memorable for you here. But oh yeah, there we thank you, Vadim.
So I think this one.
Here's the wine club bottle.
Yeah.
There we go.
Before
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jane.
Go ahead.
The one I brought out is what was, just for your information, was an SLB pick.
Oh, SLB pick, of course.
That's what this was.
Yeah. And I cannot, first of all, I love those guys. The SLB.
Those guys are wonderful. Okay. I love
they're
them.
Incredible. Yeah. They actually they came out for our 20-year anniversary back in August this year, and we had a really, really good time together. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, they've really they've taught a lot of people about our quintessential that hadn't heard about it previously, and so that's been really helpful to us. But yeah, I know that one was a red wine finish. I just can't recall the exact details on it. But all right, so the wine club in general.
Yeah, is this one as available to the general public, or is it is part of the wine club thing, or what's
yeah, so everything that we've tried tonight is available online, with I think the exception of this one. I think this one is sold out. If you know anyone in the state of Iowa, you might be able to kind of have them hunt one on a shelf around here. But these ones they do sell out pretty fast. These quintessential special releases. This is
the only one where I don't get the grass on.
Okay.
And I'm not a fan of the grass.
Okay.
But this is really nice, and as I said, I feel like this was from the first sip to the last sip, it changed, it developed, it just got better and better.
Hey, thank you. And yeah, and the blend side of things, I mean, I'm guessing that's where that the grass note that you're probably getting probably would have been blended out with all these different casks involved, and so I'm guessing that had an effect on that. But I'm glad you're liking it, and like I said, I mean, it's probably still out there. I mean, whiskey folks tend to be pretty resourceful, and you can typically find something. This one I can say it is not available online anymore, and we don't have any left at the distillery. But I know there's, you can still kind of find some floating around out in the market. But any other closing thoughts on Wine Club before we move to the next one?
Actually, I want to, before we get the last dram, everybody pour it and raise a glass. We have a traditional toast before the last dram.
Okay. Better.
Excuse me. Everybody raise a glass, smile at the camera. Thank you, Murphy, so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
I'll check and make sure everybody's eyes are, and then we can continue on.
Murphy, I have a question. Actually, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, I was just make sure I'm not wrong. We say SLB, you're talking about the YouTubers, right? The Kurt.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like it a lot.
Really good guys. Yep.
Yeah.
Can you? I know we're in the last round, but can you talk a little bit about the process? You mentioned pot still. I don't know what kind of fermentation, what kind of using a brewery yeast, distillery yeast, a little bit from. I don't know. Are you using the pot still for the bourbon and the rye as well, or?
Yes. So I'll start at the very beginning. Yeah. I mean, so we start with whole kernel grain, so it's not coming in pre-milled or anything like that. We do all the mashing on site. we go through a mash filtration system, which is going to separate the grains from the wort that we just created. Getting into fermentation, we do about a 4.5 day fermentation on average. So between 4 and 5 days of fermentation time. And for that, we use a standard distiller's yeast for that. When it comes to our stills, we have Carl pot stills. So we have 2 of them. We have 4 stills total on site, but 2 that we use specifically for whiskey. Converted from liters, we've got an 800-gallon pot still that we use for our first run, and we have a 200-gallon pot still that we utilize for our second run. And the second run, which is where we're doing our finishing run, that's where we collect heads, hearts, tails, things of that nature. To your question about do we run everything on the same stills? Indeed, we do. Yes, we use the same exact setup from mashing to mash filtration to fermentation to distillation for bourbon, rye, and single malt. The only thing that we really change along the way is yeast, which I can't dive too deep into yeast, but we do change the yeast based on the different whiskeys that we're making. Everything else stays virtually the same. And then when it comes to barrel entry, always 120 proof. Every year I say that we're gonna start to experiment with maybe 110 proof, maybe 125 proof, and then we never get around to doing it. So we're always a 120 proof barrel entry into cask with single malt, obviously ex-bourbon casks with bourbon and rye, new char oak #3. So any I know that was kind of quick, but any production elements I didn't touch on that you want me to dive into? Okay.
Can you talk
Cool.
about the cuts?
Yeah, the cuts. So when we're doing heads, hearts, and tails, it's interesting. Every distillery's kind of got their own philosophy on this, their own strategy. We really embrace variance, and I really like when our distillers actually have some say in the process. So we have a team of 3 distillers and then a distillery manager. They work around the clock from Sunday at 10 p.m. until Friday at 10 p.m. So we never shut down. We keep mashing 3 shifts. And when we're distilling, we make the cuts based on sensory. So our distillers, I mentioned various variants. They might all have slightly different sensory, obviously, and they'll make the cuts slightly differently. But the way we do that is they'll, when we're getting ready to switch from heads to hearts, which is the big cut, they'll dump some distillate on their hands and they'll give it a smell. And you can literally smell when it's time to switch from the heads to the hearts. Now, there are certain indicators, such as where the proof's at, where the temperature of the still is at. You can get some certain indicators of when it's about time, but the official decision of when to make that cut is made by the distiller who is working that specific shift. And the way they do that is utilize their own sensory. So, it's not like we hit X gallons off the still and we make the cut, or we hit X proof point and we make the cut. It comes down to sensory analysis. Yep.
Very cool. And then everything goes into ex-bourbon barrels. So the question is, who organized this and why aren't we tasting an ex-bourbon barrel sample?
I get that question a lot more often than you'd think for someone who doesn't have an ex-bourbon sample. It is something that we need to do more of. And I do like that the more of these I do, the more that question is actually coming up. People want to try our single malt just in the ex-bourbon, which is cool because that means that people want to see what the original spirit is like before it is finished in cask, which is fun. So we have released single casks of it. We don't have any of them on the market right now. I'll make it a priority here in early 2026 to release a single cask version of our ex-bourbon finished single malt. What I'm not ready to do yet is release it's offered every day. It's always in bottle on the market. Our single malt and ex-bourbon. The reason being because we really specialize more in the cask finishing side. So I want to release small amounts in single barrel offerings rather than have we do 10 barrel batches and it's available year round. So we need to have it out there for people to see. I'm just not ready to do it like in a year round commercial setting, if that makes sense.
I was just saying for the purpose of this tasting, just you make would have been fine too.
we should have in this tasting, we should have had ex-bourbon for sure. That's a really good point. But that just all the more reason for another go around at this one day. But I'm a really good call. All right, are we ready to switch gears to the final one here? And John looks like he got ahead of me. We got a big one here. So we're gonna switch to number 5, which is kind of confusing because it's like number 7 in our tasting today. But it is literally called number 5. It is a QuintEssential special release, and it was just given by Whiskey Advocate. It made their top 20 whiskeys of the year, which is a huge honor. We've never cracked that before, so it's a really big deal for us. It is the highest ranked American single malt of 2025. This news just came out 2 days ago, so it's really exciting stuff. And what it is it is our single malt. Again, double distilled, barrel entry at 120 into ex-bourbon casks. From there, it was transferred into 3 types of casks. More on that in a second. The 3 types are Madeira, Ruby Port, and Marquette red wine. 3 types, however, it's really 5 types of, it's kind of 5 casks. There's Madeira that we brought in from overseas, and an American Madeira that we make in our winery. Ruby Port from overseas, and a Ruby Port that we make in our own winery. And then Marquette red wine, which is one of our own grape varietals from our property. So those are the casks involved in this. It is an extremely special release because that Marquette red wine is involved. Marquette is a grape varietal that grows really well in the Midwest. It is not a household name, in Napa Valley or places like that. It's kind of an up and coming grape variety out of the Midwest, Marquette. And so we have a Marquette vineyard here. We have 11 acres of vineyards. And so what's so cool about this, though, is that, from the people who planted these vines to the vineyard managers who grew the grapes to the winemaker who harvested them and made the wine, and then eventually bottled that wine and gave me the cask to finish single malt in. There's so many hands have been involved in creating the flavor that was presented from this Marquette red wine barrel. It was kind of an honor to put it in this particular blend. But again, Madeira influence, Ruby Port influence, and Marquette red wine. And that's what this one is. It is our highest ever ranked single malt that we've done. So that's a ton of fun. There is just a touch of peat in this. The Ruby Port and the Marquette both had our standard 2-row pale malted barley. The Madeira did have peated malt in it, a lightly peated malt. So again, we're following that lightly peated trajectory that we've been on. So with that, go ahead and try it if you haven't, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Well, Murphy, I want to come right out in front. I never heard of Marquette, and yep. I live in Oregon wine country, Willamette Valley. So, but I know nothing about Marquette at all, which perplexes me because I try to be very up on that stuff. But
no, for sure. So grape varieties in the Midwest are kind of a whole different thing. And the reason being is because we had to develop hybrid grapes here that can withstand our harsh winters. Like I said earlier, it was -7, -8 degrees when I came into work this morning. And, a lot of the household name grape varietals that we know of, they can't withstand weather like that. They can't withstand ice storms and things of that nature. Well,
sure.
These hybrids that were developed by places like the University of Wisconsin, the University of Minnesota, Iowa State, places like that, they were developed to actually survive in the state of Iowa, in Wisconsin, in Illinois, so that they don't die every winter. And some of the grape varietals that are more popular around here would be Marquette, La Crosse, La Crescent, Brianna, Edelweiss. Those are some popular names. We're more of a white wine region than we are red wine.
Sure.
Our red wines have a tendency to be a little bit more acidic because we have to harvest a little bit earlier than other regions due to the upcoming winter. So we tend to be more of a white wine region. However, Marquette red wine it's a small name, but it's making a small name for itself at least. And I will say that the red wine casks that we get from it are stellar when it comes to single malt. So, God, the SLB SLB might have picked a Marquette red wine barrel. I'll look
They
that up.
very well might
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I can tell you this right now. This is I've been through all of them here, and your first, which is your blend of everything that we've been tasting here, and this are my favorites. So
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, this blend, it was it was a lot of fun to put together. It was also kind of hell. When I'm doing these blends, they my teammates will tell you they really mess with my head because I'll go in with a very specific vision of what I'm trying to create, a very specific mark that I want to hit, and I'll get about 80% of the way there and everything's going well, and then it'll just stall out. And it's really hard to kind of get that last 20% in there and kind of get it so that it follows that story outline I was talking about earlier, so that it's complex but still balanced. A lot of tweaks have to be made. And then lastly, I'll say every time you modify a blend, you have to wait like 2 weeks to a month before it actually settles out into its new flavor profile. So, if I add something to the blend today, well, I have to wait several weeks before I can actually analyze it and then make more modifications to it. So it really drug on for a long time, but by the end of it, I'm really, really happy with how it panned out, and I'm really hoping that you all are as well.
I'm not saying that LA is better than Iowa. Iowa, it was once asked, it was heaven, and even though we are the city of angels, that's never been the thing. I will just say that today was 73 and fully sunny, 6 miles from the beach. Again, that's a fact. That's not, I'm not saying that we're better. Just
facts are facts.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
It's been a little cold here. 73. It's been a little cold.
Oh, you guys! In Oregon,
it was like, I don't know, 80 degrees a couple days ago. I don't know.
In Oregon, where I live, the high for the last several days has been about 40 degrees. So
yeah,
it's low 50s. I'm pulling on my heavy sweater. Don't.
Really quick on this taste right here, since I'm kind of new to the Scotch thing. So every time I taste the smoke, every time you've told me that, there's peat in it. Does that sound correct?
Every time,
very smoky, a very smoky whiskey, right?
Yeah. That is generally going to be from peat. Now there are some oddballs. For instance, that Moscatel, that was a different kind of smoke. It was more of a char than a peat. So there are some oddballs in there. Another good example would be in some single malts, like Whiskey's Del Bach is a really good example. And Santa Fe Spirits is a good example. They do like a mesquited style whiskey, so it's not technically peat. So there's some some exceptions to the rule, but yes, generally in a single malt, if you're getting a heavy smoke that's coming from
what I'm saying is my flavor from char to smoke is completely different, I'm guessing. So because the Moscatel I kind of like. Now that had a lot of smoke in it for me. So what the reason I was asking is, so now that I'm understanding, at the end you always say this has a little bit of peat in it. So all that smoke is coming from, I'm just asking. So it was very smoky to me. It was probably the peat. Okay.
Yep. 100%. Yep. And I mean, even a little bit of peat, it really presents itself in a big way. Earlier when we tried that, the very first one we tried, the Solera edition, I mentioned there's just an absolute touch of peat to that. I said that, if I added 20 barrels to the vat, one of those barrels would be peated malt. And that gets pretty diluted. Well, I will say that I'm in batch 5 of the Solera edition. I put 2 barrels of peated malt into the vat, and it was over peated. I mean, a little bit of peat really goes a long way, and it kind of created a little bit of a cult following for batch number 5. But a little bit of peat really goes a long way. So yes, in these last 2 that we just had, these special releases I mentioned, there is just a touch of peat. I mean, I'm absolutely getting a decent amount of peat as well. I just know, as the person who produced it, like the amount that went into it wasn't significant, but you definitely can get it. Yep.
But peat is also one of those interesting things, right? Because there are differences depending on where that peat was what was dug up, right? If you go to Islay, for Scotch, right, you get a lot of medicinal Band-Aid flavors from it, which I happen to really like, even though when you say it out loud, it sounds effing weird, right? But it's also one of those where if you have a really old peated Scotch, the peat level has sunk down significantly, right? I mean, it's so when you look at the Octomores, for instance, right, they are the super high peat, but they're young scotches. They're 5, 6 years old,
for sure.
10 years maybe, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an Ardbeg 25, it's not going to be as pungent as an Ardbeg 10, for instance.
No, you made a number of really good points there, and specifically in the the peat having different flavor profiles. There's a lot of debate in the world of whiskey. Is there such thing as terroir or terroir? American pronunciation. And I don't have a horse in that race. I will say when it comes to peat, the answer would absolutely be yes. I mean, you're literally taking different soils from different areas, and they are absolutely going to have different flavor profiles. So you make a really, really good point there. I hope to one day be able to use a few different types of peated malt. Right now, we've just used Baird's heavily peated, but it would, for exactly the reason you just brought up, it would be fun to kind of diversify and experiment with some other types as well.
Hey, Murphy, I know Ty and Moose down in Andalusia were working with North Dakota peat.
I need to check that out. They're
I've
awesome,
yet to.
by the way.
I've got the bottle. It was a bottle of your own in the lobby or at the distillery. I was there a couple weeks back.
Okay.
But I've yet to crack it open and put it against a Scottish peat to see what the difference is.
Yeah, I'm guessing you'll see maybe a little difference, but I mean, it's also a little complex because I mean, ours in particular is Scottish peat. We're just producing it here, so I mean, there's going to be some similarities and some differences. I will say though that Andalusia, those guys are awesome. I was at the Bastards Ball with the with a whole bunch of different distillers down there at the Bastards Ball in Austin, Texas. And I always get to see the Andalusia guys there every year that we do it. And it's always a blast to chat with them for a while. They're one of the best players in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I met you not this year, last year. I was working at the Bastards Ball and up in the vault.
So. Yes, that's exactly right. So much fun. And the vault is probably the coolest place in the world. And so, thank you for showing that to me. But just incredible. Yep.
Do you ever do this with bourbons and ryes? The same thing we're doing tonight?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we do it with we do a lot of like virtual tastings and different pairing dinners and things of that nature. And we typically tailor, the lineup specifically to an event. So we do bourbons, we do ryes. I've never done one that's all ryes, but we could. Usually what we do is more of like a history of Cedar Ridge, and it features bourbon, single malt, and rye. But this one in particular is just all quintessential focused.
So we did an introduction to Cedar Ridge a couple of years ago. We just did a focus on single malt. So if there's a want, Robert obviously put it out on the table. I think, Murphy, we're going to have you back Q1 of 26 to do bourbon and rye from Cedar Ridge.
I'm in. I would love to do it, and we've now got more versions of both than ever before, just from all the fun casks that we utilize, and a lot of that was born from our single malt program, using all these fun casks. Well, we're like, we've got them, and it's kind of what we're known for at this point. So let's bring it into bourbon and rye as well. So we have our standard flavor profile bourbon and rye, and then we have a bunch of different cask finishes that we can sample through. Yep.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot that I'm looking at on the website that I haven't heard of anyone else doing Amontillado sherry finished bourbon. That's crazy.
that Amontillado, the Amontillado sherry bourbon. I'm not a salesperson. I don't, sales. I have no incentive on sales or anything like that. If you want to try something great and you're into like hard to get bottles and stuff, keep an eye on the Amontillado bourbon. It goes on sale, I think, on the 12th of December, and it will sell out. That was one to talk about SLB again. They gave it their favorite bourbon of the year last year, and we didn't know that they were going to do that. And they gave it the bourbon of the year, and the next day the phones were ringing off the hook, and it completely sold out, which we did not expect happening, which was really interesting. So this is the first time that we're going to release it since then, and it comes out on the 12th. So for anyone who likes cask finished bourbon, keep an eye on that.
That's definitely understandable. I think they are the largest uh, uh,
Mhm.
group doing what they
Yeah,
do of
100%.
anybody in all of the US of A. It's
Yes, and
incredible. I mean,
um,
it's
it
incredible.
it really isn't. And I mean, I knew that their their following was obviously substantial because you can see that. But it was the first time that I felt their following in
Sure.
in the version of phone calls, emails, messages. Like, I mean, it went crazy when they gave it that recognition. So,
Yeah, even though
um,
they're in Indiana, I live in Oregon, and I met up with them when they came to do a tasting with Westward, and
mhm,
they were
mhm,
so cool. I mean, just really, really nice people,
mhm.
just wonderful people. So
Yes, yes. They're really, really, really fun, and yeah, hope to get them back out here again soon. But
So Murphy,
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to that. I'm gonna try to get on and buy that bottle. I'm out here, but I'll do my best. And
we do ship, so it'll be online and available.
perfect. I have
Yeah.
my own still. I have a 26-gallon still, so I distill myself here. I do. I
Hell
make my own
yes,
bourbons and ryes and my own corn, white lightning. Yeah,
hell
I'm making
yes.
apple pie that I can't make enough of. So but my what I really love is I make my own rye. So I age it in
Mhm,
a 20-liter barrel. So 1 year is comparable to like 3 years. And then I take
mhm,
that and I make an old fashioned. I age it in a separate barrel for another 8 weeks.
mhm.
So
Okay, very cool.
that's my thing is old fashions and stuff like that. So I don't mind trying other stuff, but yeah, I really enjoy
Mhm,
distilling. And when you were start talking about all the stuff you're doing, that I love that. It's a lot of
mhm.
fun for me.
Thank you. No, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing it too, and keep at it, man. That's really exciting stuff. Really exciting.
so Murphy, we took a
Yeah.
poll. You want to take a guess at what the favorite pour of the night was?
Well, it's either I'll go with number 5 with Wine Club right after it, but I'll go number 5. Mhm.
You're so close. They tied.
Let's see. Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, that is good because
Now,
Top
I,
Pete.
I, I just want to say, so I voted for the wine
Mhm,
club first meeting myself, but
mhm,
Ilana likes the Sauternes
mhm,
better. And I think Golan had another one. So I think uh, it it's there's something for everybody here, right?
yeah. And that's what we want. We what I would like. I mean, I would like the blends to, selfishly, I'd like the blends to get the most votes because those are what I work the hardest on. But as a portfolio, I mean, you want the votes to be kind of evenly spread because that means, like you said, there is something for everyone, and obviously, they're generally all in a good wheelhouse. But maybe one or two get a few more votes than the others. That's what you want. You want a nice diverse set. So I'm glad that we got that tonight. Yeah, glad we got that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So any questions on any of the things that we tasted through tonight? Anything Cedar Ridge related? Anything at all?
I mean, I'm excited to in a couple of years try that, 100% peated thing. I mean
You and me
that
both. Yeah.
that's going to be interesting. But
Is there a 20-year barrel coming out at some point? 20-year single
You
malt?
know, I wish we had the discipline, early on to not, to actually sit on things that long. I mean, you got to keep in mind Cedar Ridge it's a privately owned company, and I mean, in order to get where we've gotten, it started out very much, hey, if we have, if we can sell X and make Y, well, then we can stay in business and keep going. And
For sure.
so, it has evolved into something that is, a lot more successful than we ever thought it would be, and a lot bigger than we thought it would ever be. And so, because of that, I mean, originally we didn't really have the foresight of, hey, on our 20 year, it'd be nice to have this product available for it. It was more like, hey, let's focus on getting to tomorrow. Is how the very early days of Cedar Ridge were. I didn't touch on this. I mean, we originally we literally started in a garage. I mean, we were renting a garage, and fast forward to today, we're on a 75-acre campus with about 12 buildings. So I mean, things have really changed a lot. But our early vision was very different than what it is today. And so unfortunately, no, we don't have anything crazy on that side. When it does come to age, I mean, I will say that next year we're gonna. This is the first time I've ever said this, but we're gonna release a 10-year rye. So we've got some fun stuff of age coming down the pipeline, but no, it's not like we sat on barrel one for 20 years or anything of that nature, unfortunately. But I sure wish we did.
Fair enough. Now we have a small brand coming up in January where I had to twist some arms and we're tasting barrel number 2, which we're excited for. But yeah, I totally understand that. You got to keep your lights on. I'm glad you did what you did because we wouldn't be here talking about this today if you didn't. So.
Exactly. It panned out well. Yeah, it's all worked out well. Very fortunate for the support that we've gotten. That's for sure.
For sure. So I noticed you're not using a lot of your own wine barrels. That's so interesting. A lot of the stuff you source from overseas. Is there a reason? For
yeah. In tonight's tasting, that's just kind of how it shook out. We do absolutely use a lot of our own wine casks. The hard part is that I like a nice variety, and I mean, when it comes to wines, I mean, we make probably 12 different varieties of wine that we can utilize, which is great. But our cask finishing program, I mean, we have well over 40 cask types. So I mean, we have to bring plenty in from overseas, and that's kind of what we focused on tonight. I will say though that some of the best casks that we have are our estate American port and our estate American style Madeira, both of which did make an appearance in the number 5, the one that we just had. But yes, on its own, we don't have any estate wine casks on their own tonight, which next time we need to work those in as well because they're stellar.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Is there, I guess, last question from me, and I'll shut up. You're doing a lot of experimentation. Is there anything that you're super excited for that you're waiting to be like perfectly ready to release maybe next year? And then on the flip side of that, any experiments that have gone totally haywire that you had to blend out or you couldn't bottle?
I'll start with the latter first. We experiments that didn't pan out. I like to do experiments that sometimes don't because you can, like I said earlier, if you get like an off balance cask or something, it can kind of be a good blender down the road. And so you still got your options open. Well, one that did not go well was I had someone on our team convince us to get some Amburana casks, which I've never been a big fan of, but we work as a team and we wanted to entertain the idea. So we brought in some Amburana and we filled it with, we filled 2 with bourbon, 2 with single malt and 2 with rye. And I do not know what I'm going to do with them. First of all, Amburana casks, you want to use them for like 7 to 14 days for finishing casks. And I didn't like where they were at after that amount of time. And I just kind of left the whiskey in those casks. Well, it's been about 2 years now that they've been in there. So the whiskey itself, is anywhere from, the bourbon is probably 6 years old and the single malt's probably 7 years old total, but all of it's been in those Amburana casks for about 2 years. And I mean, the flavor is substantial. I mean, it's almost like pure cinnamon. You can smell the casks when you walk by them. It's crazy. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So, every now and then when we get groups like this that come out and they ask that question, we'll actually taste them together just for fun. And it's fun to see everyone's reaction. So that would be one that I would say didn't pan out, or at least hasn't panned out yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. We'll figure it out. When it comes to other experiments that I'm excited about, I mean, there's a number of them. I will say that, so I'm always working. I'm about 1 year ahead of what's out on the market. The most recent QuintEssential special release is obviously the number 5 that we just had. I'm putting the finishing touches on the one that will get released in 2025. It comes out in April, which means I have to have it bottled in January, which is a month away. So I'm actually actively working on the blend for that, and I'm really excited about how it's coming together. So, I'll kind of leave a little teaser out there for the 2026 QuintEssential special release. I do believe it will be the best thing that we've ever put out in the market. But with that being said, I'm very biased.
So I got a question for you. Since you're saying that you had stuff that you're just still waiting on, So I did a distillery tour for another distillery, and they had a bunch of Sauternes cask finished sitting around. And in their words, it's just wasn't ready yet, even though it's been there for a couple of years. And you have your Sauternes cask. So I mean, how long did yours sit in a Sauternes cask before you bottled it up?
The one that we had today would have been in the Sauternes cask for 2.5 years. I mean, it had a decent amount of time in it. But yeah, sometimes they take longer or less time than the one next to it does. Another interesting thing about those is when it comes to maturation, and specifically in secondary casks, you kind of have to catch them at the right time. Barrel maturation, it kind of works in cycles. I've had a barrel where I tried it in, say, like we'll say January, and it was amazing, and I kind of forgot about it and went to show someone that same barrel in March, and it was not amazing. It was kind of funky and a little bit off. And then you try it, maybe in July again, and it's back to amazing. So it kind of works in cycles. And so you have to not only does it have to be to the point where it's quote unquote ready, but you also have to catch it at what I would call the right time. And that can be even a little bit more complicated. Even really good barrels kind of have periods where they're kind of a little bit awkward or off balance. So yeah, as far as the timing goes of it all, it's tough, but that's kind of the job, is to track the stuff and make sure that the cask is ready, and make sure that you're not bottling it when it's in one of those awkward stages. And yeah, that's kind of where the hands-on element to this all comes into play.
That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
What is the Slipknot in your series?
Slipknot. So we teamed up with the band Slipknot. They are an Iowa band originally.
Oh, it's a band, okay.
And we're an Iowa distillery. So yeah, I mean they're a global band, Slipknot. They're a metal band. They do really, really cool stuff. Well, in I think 2018, 2019, they reached out to us wanting to get into whiskey, and what we landed on with them was a blend of bourbon and rye. They're this heavy metal band. I needed something that was going to be kind of full bodied and super flavorful, and that's where we came up with the bourbon rye blend. And yeah, it's been a ton of fun to do it with them. We've got a fun release that they haven't announced yet that will be coming out in, I think, 7 days, 10 days, somewhere in that range. So stay tuned on that. It'll be a really fun Slipknot collaborative release.
Since you make wine, I went to Paso Robles. I go up there camping quite a bit, and a little winery / distillery. And what they told me was they actually make vodka out of grapes.
Okay.
So they're telling me that the grapes are already one step to the distilling part, that they use the grapes from the wine and they make a vodka. And I mean, it wasn't bad. I'm not a big vodka guy, but they took that grape vodka and they put it in a bourbon barrel. And I'm telling you, I couldn't tell. It was the craziest thing I've ever tasted. And I'm like, there's no way there's no way this is grapes vodka in a bourbon barrel. And I mean, it was pretty damn good.
That's interesting. And the way that all works. Yeah. You just never know how it's going to go, and experimentation on that side is really fun. But it's weird because vodka's got to come off the still around or even north of 190 proof, and by the time you're distilling to something that high a proof, it's going to be almost entirely neutral, regardless of what the base of it was, whether it was produced from corn, rye, wheat, grapes. You can make vodka out of almost anything. So it's interesting that even though it came out of the still that high proof, that they were able to maintain at least some flavor that was going to show up in barrel. So like I said, I mean, that's kind of the fun part of experimentation, is you never know what's going to work and what's not going to work. That'd be interesting to try. I'm kind of jealous that you got.
That's why I said it was something I had never seen before. And since you make wine, I just brought it up right now because it was. Yeah. I would have called anybody a liar when I tasted it. I said, "There's no way."
Hey, Robert, who was the winery?
It's called Redefined in Paso Robles. It's a really small one. You got to look up the distilleries though, because not everybody's distilling, not everybody's doing both. So it should be easy to find. It's called Redefined in Paso Robles, and actually, I highly recommend it. They make a very good wheat, a rye, but they're very small, so they sell out very fast. But what's really cool is you can go there and you can taste wine and you can taste a flight of vodka, and they make gin too, a gin and some bourbons and rye. But yeah, that one threw me off, man. I was like, "What are you talking about? This is great vodka that you made and put it in a bourbon barrel." And I'm like, I would have been.
We're off topic. Stop
That's all right. It's all good, but no, that is very interesting, and yeah,
back to the farm.
check it out.
I just thought we were over the tasting. We were just discussing and kind of drinking a little bit. That's all.
Talking to someone from Cedar Ridge, so let's be polite.
No,
that's why I brought it up, because he makes wine. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They said that's one part of their distilling already. That's
make me pull this tasting over.
No. All really, really good stuff. But the wine element that we do, hopefully on the wine side of things that you were able to see, again, to Vadim's point earlier, I mean, we didn't do any like straight up Cedar Ridge estate casks tonight. We can definitely do that on the next tasting, which hopefully there is one. But there were some estate wine casks involved in both the Wine Club and Number 5. And I mean, hopefully you're all able to see a little bit how our wine skill set and our single malt skill set, how they do play off one another, kind of to Robert's point. And hopefully you were able to see the benefits of that tonight as we went through this flight. So yeah, with that, I mean, on the side of things kind of being wrapped up, I mean, that's what I've got for tonight. And hopefully, this was a good intro for those of you who weren't familiar with the QuintEssential, and hopefully a good refresher for those of you who, have supported it and have had it before. And hopefully everyone enjoyed the process. Oh, it looks like we got a raffle.
Thank you, Murphy. It was great. Thank you.
And thank you. And I'll also mention, hopefully, sorry about my voice. I'm a little under the weather and I'm competing with a lost voice. So hopefully that's coming through okay. But I really appreciate y'all being here tonight. This was a ton of fun. Yeah.
Thanks, Murph.
Yeah. Thank you.
Everybody, we have a nice little raffle. Got a couple of hats and a shirt that they were kind enough to send us.
Oh, there you go.
No, I didn't realize this was a long sleeve. Never mind, we didn't get any shirts. Sorry.
Is it adult size or is it kid size?
It is large.
So kid size. Okay.
Large. You have very different understandings for what an adult drinks and what is kid size. Can't have it both ways, sir. You cannot have it both ways. Oh, crap. I messed up. This box had all the pins and stickers in it too. Oops.
You are so fired. No, obviously nobody got swag. We'll get it to you so that you have it at some point. Everybody make sure your name's on the wheel of fun there.
Oh, I'm definitely keeping the shirt if it lands on me. Yes.
My name's only on there once. I think it's supposed to be twice.
Twice? Did you sign up twice?
No. I just get special treatment.
Oh, okay, got it.
I like that theory. Okay. Shuffle, 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 and spin.
Go, Vadim.
Oh,
you have to claim these this year. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Jim, congratulations, buddy. 2 hats and a long sleeve large shirt. Which would you like?
I'm sorry. I got a choice there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Pick one.
That's what I'm saying. 2 hats.
Long sleeve shirt.
Long sleeve shirt?
Yep.
It's a large. That's the only size we have.
That'll work.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. Send Jane a message.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Please try and get it within 30 days so that I don't have this stuff sitting in my living room.
I'll do my best, Jane. But I don't know where to send it, so we'll have to figure that out.
We'll figure it out.
You can message me. When you sign up, put it in the comments.
Okay.
And Robert. Hey, first time guest, first time lucky.
There you go,
Congratulations,
Robert.
buddy.
Nice work, Robert.
Oh.
Do you want the trucker hat or the I guess this is made out of jeans? I don't know. This is kind of cool. You want the Cedar Ridge this one or the Cedar Ridge this one?
Nah, I like the brown one.
All right. All yours. Congratulations.
Same deal, please.
Oh, this is a Scully hat. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to write this down because I will forget.
Oh, we all forget for sure. If these don't get claimed, we're definitely keeping them.
Yeah. Henrik.
Congratulations, buddy.
There you go.
You get to choose either this hat or
This
hat.
I'll take the double X long sleeve shirt, please.
You get a double X hat. Here you go.
Okay.
Perfect. Congratulations.
Thank you. I win. Yeah.
You are a wiener.
Awesome. Oh, Murphy, I don't want to keep you up too much later. Thank you so much for your time tonight. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Hey, thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone being here. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully some of our paths cross over, the coming months. Michael, hopefully I see you at the next Bastard Ball, and again, this was really fun. So thanks for including me, and hopefully we can do it again.
And if you happen to stumble over some of that wine club, let us know.
I will. I'll keep you posted. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple people that have asked about that recently, and I'll talk with our sales team, and if they see any around, I'll post it on Instagram or something like that. So that
no, not Instagram. You send me an email, and I get it over to Henrik.
Yes.
I will directly email you guys. Yeah.
Perfect.
Murphy, thank you so much, buddy. It was great.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thanks for your support.
Murphy,
Thanks,
can I ask
Murphy.
you a quick question?
Yeah.
That Cedar Ridge Port Cask Finish Straight Rye, is it as good as it sounds?
Well, I mean, I'm about the most biased person who can answer that, but I truly think it's a very good whiskey.
Thank you, sir.
I would be very surprised if you bought it and didn't like it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Hey, thank you all. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, Murph.